First, they said it can't be true. Then they prayed it wasn't. And now they fear the day you finally accept what you are. They told you over and over, you're not special. You're just imagining things. You're not chosen. They spat their denial in your face, laughed at the very idea, and mocked you like it was some grand joke. But truth has a way of outliving lies. And now, their laughter has turned into silence, their arrogance into fear, because the very thing they swore could never be true is standing right in front of them. And thank you, yes, you, the chosen one. Whether this is your first time here or you've been standing strong with us from the beginning, your presence and your super gifts are what fuel this unstoppable mission. They doubted you, they denied you, but now you rise. If you're done letting their disbelief define you, if you're ready to step into your power without hesitation, smash that like button, hit subscribe, and drop 77 in the comments to mark the moment you stop questioning and start claiming what's already yours. No more waiting, no more doubting. Let's begin. So, they tried to erase your identity, bury your power, make you doubt what you knew deep down. They called you delusional, out of touch, desperate. But desperate for what? Their approval, their validation. Please, you were never seeking their acceptance. They were terrified of giving it to you, because the moment they admitted what you are, chosen, they would have to confront the reality that they are not. That's why they fought so hard to keep you blind. Because if you ever realized the weight of your existence, the depth of your knowing, the unshakable force inside you, they would have no control over you anymore. And now they feel it slipping. The lies they built around you like a cage are falling apart. And all that's left is the truth they never wanted to face. First, they said, it can't be true. Now, they flinch when you speak. They avoid your gaze because they see something in you that wasn't there before. Confidence, certainty, power. They sense it like an oncoming storm, and they don't know whether to run or beg for shelter. They thought if they ignored you, you would disappear. That if they mocked you enough, you would shrink. That if they repeated their lies long enough, you'd believe them. But look at you, still standing, still here, and stronger than ever. The moment they feared has arrived. You're no longer questioning, you're knowing. And nothing terrifies them more than a chosen one who finally accepts their place in this world. Because the power they spent years denying, it was never theirs to take. It was never up for debate. It was never something they had the right to control. Now it's time to take action. Hit the like button below this video to help spread this message to more chosen ones who need to hear it. And hey, don't forget to subscribe, not for them, but for you. Because deep down, you already know what they refuse to accept. They were wrong, you were right, and you were chosen from the very beginning. And now, let's dive in step by step. But be warned, this isn't just something you watch. If you are truly chosen, you will feel it. That pull, that undeniable force telling you this is meant for you. Stay till the end, and you'll understand why they fought so hard to keep this from you. Number 1. First, they laughed. Now, they look away. Mockery is the last refuge of the weak, because deep down, they fear what they don't understand. They laughed at you. They called you foolish, delusional, lost in your own world. They spoke your name with sarcasm, with arrogance, with that smug little smirk that said, "You'll never be more than this." But tell me, where is their laughter now? Where are their jokes? Their once loud voices have grown quiet, their confidence cracked, their mocking replaced with a silence they can't explain. Because the joke was never on you. It was on them. At first, they saw you as entertainment. They saw your vision, your questions, your way of thinking as something to ridicule. Why? Because it was easier for them to laugh than to listen. It was easier to mock than to admit you saw something they didn't. That's always been their way. History proves it. Einstein was called a daydreaming fool when he failed in school. Tesla was dismissed as a madman when he spoke of a world powered by wireless energy. Galileo was branded a heretic for saying the Earth revolved around the sun. And yet, who was right? Who was the one rewriting reality while the crowd stood frozen in ignorance? They laughed at them too. And now they look at you the same way, or at least they used to. But something has shifted, hasn't it? You've felt it. The way they don't meet your eyes anymore. The way their words are more careful, more hesitant. The way their mockery has dried up, leaving only a quiet, uneasy recognition. Because somewhere along the way, the game changed. You didn't need to fight back. You didn't need to prove anything. You just kept moving, kept building, kept seeing, kept knowing. And while they wasted their energy laughing, you were growing into something unstoppable. They don't laugh anymore. Not because they suddenly believe you, not yet. No, their silence means something else. It means doubt. The same people who once dismissed you are now questioning themselves. Their reality isn't as solid as they thought. Because if you were wrong, then why are things unfolding exactly as you said they would? If you were lost, then why do you seem so certain while they scramble for answers? Here's what they won't admit. A part of them always knew. A part of them always felt it. That unsettling presence about you, that quiet depth they couldn't put into words. That's why they laughed in the first place. Mockery was their shield. Their way of pretending they weren't shaken by your certainty. They see you now, and the laughter is gone. And what's left in its place? Discomfort. Because now they don't know where to place you. You don't fit into their little labels anymore. You're not their joke, but you're not their leader either. You exist in a space that makes them nervous. But let's be honest, they always knew you were different. They saw it before you even did. They sensed it in your presence, in the way you carried yourself, in the way your mind worked in ways theirs never could. But instead of honoring it, they tried to destroy it. Because people fear what they don't understand. They reject what threatens their comfortable illusions. But illusions don't last forever. So now, they look away. Not because they don't see you, but because they do. And they don't know how to face the truth that was standing in front of them this entire time. So let me ask you this. What do you do now? Do you wait for them to finally admit what you've always known? Do you slow down, soften yourself, make it easier for them to catch up? Or do you step fully into your power, knowing that you were never meant to be accepted by those who refused to see? You were never meant to fit in. You were meant to stand apart, to walk ahead while the rest trip over their own ignorance, to see what they don't, to understand what they can't. And that's exactly why they're quiet now. Because deep down, they know the one they laughed at is the one who was right all along. Number 2, the truth you carry is their greatest fear. They never feared the truth. They feared the day you would stop doubting it. From the very beginning, they didn't want to debate you. They didn't want to prove you wrong. That was never the goal. No, what they wanted was control. They wanted you unsure. They wanted you second-guessing. They wanted you so tangled in doubt, fear, and hesitation that you never even considered standing firm in what you knew. Because the moment you accepted your truth, the moment you embraced what you are, they would lose their grip on you forever. They have spent years convincing you that what you see, what you feel, what you know isn't real. They created distractions, built illusions, twisted narratives, all to keep you blind to the power you hold. Because truth is dangerous. And truth in the hands of someone like you, that's something they never wanted to face. Ask yourself this. If you were wrong, why were they so desperate to silence you? Why did they fight so hard to keep you confused? Because people don't waste time suppressing what isn't a threat. They never needed to convince themselves that you were powerless. They needed to convince you. And for a while, it worked, didn't it? You doubted, you questioned, you played small, you shrank yourself down, tried to blend in, tried to deny the knowing inside you. You let their opinions weigh on you. Let their laughter echo in your mind. Let their disbelief make you hesitant. But what happens when the chains don't hold anymore? What happens when you stop explaining yourself, defending yourself, waiting for permission? What happens when you finally accept what they tried so hard to keep from you? That's what they fear, not the truth itself, but the fact that it belongs to you. Because the moment you stop questioning, the game is over. The moment you trust what you see, what you feel, what you know, they lose their ability to manipulate you. The moment you embrace your place, your role, your purpose, you become untouchable. This is why they panic now. Why their voices have changed. Why their confidence is cracking. They see the shift happening in you. They feel the weight of the moment they spent their whole lives trying to prevent. And deep down, they always knew this day would come. They are terrified of what you might do with this power, because you were never supposed to wake up. You were never supposed to see through the lies. You were never supposed to step into the light. Never supposed to hold your ground when they told you to kneel. But here you are, standing taller than ever, seeing clearer than ever. You don't need their permission anymore. You don't need their validation, their acceptance, their approval. You don't need them to confirm what you already know. And that is the worst thing that could have ever happened to them. Because the second you realize you never needed them, they become irrelevant. You were the one they feared, but they hid it behind laughter. You were the one they envied, but they disguised it as mockery. You were the one they couldn't control, so they tried to make you doubt yourself into submission. But no more. Now, the weight of truth is in your hands. Now, the power they tried to take from you is something they can never touch again. Now, their fear is fully realized because you are awake, aware, and unshaken. And now they realize what was always inevitable. You were never lost. You were just waiting for the right moment to rise. Number 3. They called you crazy, but reality doesn't ask for permission. They called you crazy because admitting you were right would mean admitting they were blind. They laughed in your face, rolled their eyes, waved you off like you were nothing more than a fool chasing shadows. They spoke over you, dismissed you, twisted your words until you started questioning yourself. Every time you tried to speak your truth, they made you feel like the problem. You're imagining things. You're paranoid. You always think too much. But here's the part they never expected. The truth doesn't bend just because they refuse to see it. Reality doesn't ask for permission. It unfolds, whether they like it or not. And now it's happening. Everything you saw, everything you warned them about, everything you knew, it's all coming to light. And suddenly, they aren't laughing anymore. Look at them, fidgeting, struggling, watching the world twist into something they can't explain. Their confidence, once so loud and unshakable, is crumbling under the weight of their own ignorance. They spent so much time mocking you that they never stopped to ask themselves one thing. What if they weren't crazy? Because now they see it. The shift, the cracks, the unraveling of the illusion they built their lives around. And the worst part? They remember every single time they called you insane. Every single moment they laughed at you, dismissed you, made you feel like a fool. And now, that same crazy person is the one standing unshaken while their world falls apart. They gaslit you because denial was easier than change. They manipulated you because control was easier than facing the truth. They mocked you because fear is loud, but truth is silent. They weren't laughing because they were certain you were wrong. They were laughing because they were terrified you were right. And now they know. Look at history. It's always the same. The ones who see beyond the illusion are always ridiculed first. The ones who speak the truth before others are ready to hear it are always attacked. Nikola Tesla, a madman. Galileo, a lunatic. Van Gogh, a fool. Every revolutionary, every visionary, every truth seeker who ever walked this earth was labeled as crazy until the world caught up. And that's exactly what's happening now. They are catching up to what you saw long ago. And the irony, they will pretend like they always knew, like they always had an idea, like they were starting to question things too. They will rewrite their own past, erase their own mockery, and try to stand next to you as if they weren't the very ones who tried to break you. But you remember every smirk, every scoff, every condescending look. And yet you don't need their apologies. You don't need them to finally say, "You were right," because you were never speaking for their approval. You were never looking for validation. You were just trying to wake them up before it was too late. But that was never your burden to carry. And now, as they stand in the wreckage of their own ignorance, as they struggle to understand what you saw all along, you stand untouched, calm, watching, knowing. They called you crazy, but you were just early. They called you crazy, but you were always 10 steps ahead. They called you crazy, but you were right. And now, they finally see it. Number 4. You were always ahead. They just couldn't see it. The blind always think the one who sees is lost until they realize they've been walking in circles. They swore up and down that you didn't know what you were talking about. They scoffed at your ideas, dismissed your warnings, laughed at the way you saw things before they did. In their arrogance, they believed they were leading, but in reality, they were running in circles while you walked straight ahead. They confused ignorance with intelligence, noise with wisdom, confidence with truth. They thought being the loudest meant they were right, that repeating the same empty words over and over would somehow make them fact. Meanwhile, you stood in silence, watching, understanding, knowing. They called you slow. They called you lost. But how can you be lost when you've been ahead the entire time? The truth is, they never saw you clearly. You didn't fit into their world of shallow thinking, of surface-level understanding. You were too deep for them, too sharp, too aware. And instead of trying to understand you, they chose to mock what they couldn't comprehend, because admitting you were ahead, that would mean admitting they were behind. And that's something their egos could never handle. So instead, they painted you as the fool. They made you out to be the one who didn't get it, the one who was too different, the one who just didn't understand how the world works. But look at them now. Look at how desperately they scramble for answers, searching for clarity in places you already walked through years ago. You never needed to argue with them. Time has done all the talking for you. Because wisdom moves differently. It doesn't seek approval. It doesn't beg to be heard. It simply exists, waiting patiently for the moment when the ignorant can no longer ignore reality. They thought they were outpacing you, racing ahead with their quick decisions and loud opinions. But now the road has twisted, and suddenly they're the ones looking around in confusion while you move forward with purpose. And now they feel it. That uneasy realization creeping into their minds, that subtle shift in the way they look at you. They're starting to wonder, starting to question, starting to replay the moments when they dismissed you, only to find themselves now standing exactly where you said they would be. This is the part they never expected. They were so sure of themselves when they looked down on you, so sure that their way was the only way, that their understanding was the limit of truth itself. But now they hesitate before speaking. Now they watch you more closely, listen more carefully, weigh their words with a little more caution, because they see it now. They see that you were never the fool. They see that you weren't lagging behind. You were just walking a path they hadn't reached yet. And the worst part, you never needed their validation in the first place. That's what cuts them the deepest. Not just that you were right, but that you never once needed them to realize it. While they sought applause, while they fought to be the loudest in the room, you built something real. You moved in silence, in patience, in purpose. And now their noise has faded, because the moment has come. The moment when the truth can no longer be ignored. The moment when they look up, only to realize the one they mocked, the one they underestimated, the one they thought was lost, was the one leading the way all along. And nothing terrifies them more than knowing they were blind to it until now. Number 5. Denial is their only armor, and it's cracking. Denial isn't strength. It's a crumbling wall built to protect fragile egos from the truth. They fought you. They fought reality. They clung to their lies like a lifeline, convinced that if they just ignored the truth long enough, it would disappear. But truth doesn't disappear. It doesn't bend. It doesn't fade. And it doesn't wait. And now you can see it happening. Watch them, fidgeting, stumbling, grasping at straws. Their certainty is cracking, their confidence is slipping, and the same people who once spoke so boldly are now speaking with hesitation. Their armor of denial is falling apart, and they feel it. At first, they were so sure of themselves, so sure you were the one who couldn't see. They laughed in your face, dismissed your words, looked at you with that smug condescension, the look of someone who believes they are untouchable, unquestionable, invincible. But that's the thing about illusions. They only last for so long. You knew it would happen eventually. You knew that no matter how deep they buried their heads in the sand, time would rip their comfort away from them. Because time doesn't wait for anyone, not them, not their arrogance, not their fragile little world of excuses and false confidence. And now they are being dragged into the reality they spent years running from. They are stumbling through their own contradictions, feeling the weight of their past words coming back to haunt them. They don't talk as loud now, do they? The ones who once laughed the hardest are strangely quiet these days. The ones who mocked you with the most confidence now seem unsure, uneasy, uncomfortable. Because deep down, they always knew. They always knew something was wrong. That's why they fought so hard to deny it. That's why they worked so tirelessly to convince you, and more importantly, to convince themselves that you were the one who was lost. Because accepting the truth, that would mean admitting they were wrong, and their egos couldn't handle that. So they built walls of denial around themselves, convinced they were untouchable. They spoke in absolutes, pretending their ignorance was wisdom, pretending their blind confidence was some kind of intelligence. But it was all a performance. And now the stage lights have gone out, the mask has slipped, and the reality they mocked is standing right in front of them. So what do they do now? What do they do when the fortress of arrogance they built starts to collapse? Some will try to pretend they always knew. They'll shift their narrative, rewrite history, act like they were never the ones laughing. They'll avoid the subject, change their words, conveniently forget the way they ridiculed you. But you remember every look, every laugh, every dismissive wave of the hand. You remember the tone of their voice when they called you crazy, delusional, lost. And now, as they scramble for footing in the wreckage of their own denial, you stand steady. Because you never needed the lies. You never needed the comfort of ignorance, the illusion of safety, the cheap validation that came from blending into a crowd of people who never knew what they were talking about in the first place. You chose to see the truth. And that's the difference between you and them. They needed the lie. You didn't. And that is why they fear you now. Because while they struggle to adjust to a reality they tried to reject, you are already ahead. You are already steady, already aware, already standing in a truth that they are only just now realizing they can't escape. You see it in their eyes, the doubt, the hesitation, the unspoken regret. The weight of realizing they spent years laughing at the very thing that is now staring them in the face. Denial was their armor, and now it is shattered at their feet. Number 6. You weren't alone, you were just first. They never left you alone because you were wrong. They left you alone because you were right before they were ready to accept it. They wanted you to believe you were the only one. That no one else thought like you. No one else saw what you saw. No one else questioned the illusion they clung to like a lifeline. They wanted you isolated, doubting, second-guessing, because nothing is more dangerous to their control than a mind that refuses to follow blindly. And, for a while, they almost had you, didn't they? You looked around, searching for someone, anyone, who saw through the cracks the way you did. But all you found was silence. No confirmation, no validation, just a sea of people who were too afraid to say what you knew deep in your core. Something wasn't right. And in that silence, doubt crept in. Was it just you? Were you overthinking? Were you the crazy one? That's exactly what they wanted you to believe. Because the easiest way to break someone is to make them think they are alone. But here's the truth, they never wanted you to figure out. You were never alone. You were just first. You saw before they saw. You knew before they knew. You questioned before they were even willing to admit there was something to question. And for that, they rejected you. Not because they truly believed you were wrong, but because accepting your truth would have forced them to confront their own blindness. And now, they're waking up. Look around. Feel it. The shift is happening. The very same people who dismissed you, who told you to let it go, who rolled their eyes when you spoke, they're not laughing anymore, are they? They're looking back at the words they once ignored. They're remembering the warnings they brushed off, and they're realizing piece by piece that the truth was never hidden from them. It was just easier to pretend it wasn't there. But you never needed the crowd. You never needed permission to see, to understand, to be ahead of your time. Think about it. Every single person who changed the world stood alone at first. Da Vinci was sketching helicopters when people were still throwing stones. Tesla was dreaming of wireless energy while others were lighting candles. The greatest minds, the visionaries, the ones who shaped history, they weren't part of the crowd. They walked ahead of it. And so did you. They didn't reject you because you were wrong. They rejected you because they weren't ready. But time doesn't wait for comfort. And truth doesn't need validation. Now, as the illusion crumbles, they're scrambling to keep up. And what about you? Do you slow down? Do you soften your step, wait for them to catch up, pretend you never saw the truth first, just to make them comfortable? Or do you keep moving? Because here's what they won't tell you. They need you now. The very same ones who laughed are now the ones searching. The ones who denied are now the ones questioning. They don't say it out loud, of course. Their pride won't let them. But you see it. The hesitation, the stolen glances, the quiet moments where they start to ask the same questions you asked years ago. They will never admit that you were the first to walk this road. But that doesn't change the fact that you were. So what now? Do you wait for them to give you the respect they should have given long ago? Do you waste time demanding an apology they'll never say out loud? No! You move forward. You stay ahead. Because you were never meant to follow. You are not just another person in the crowd. You are the signal before the storm. The one who sees the wave before it crashes. The one who holds the map while others stumble in the dark. And now, as they begin to wake up, they will look to you. Not because you asked them to, not because you needed them to, but because the truth is undeniable now. They see you. They recognize what they once ignored, and deep down, they know the one they left behind was the one who saw the truth first. Number 7. They fought the truth because it exposed them. The truth doesn't break people, it just shows them who they've been all along. They never fought you. They fought what your existence forced them to see. You were never their real enemy. Their own reflection was. The way you carried yourself, the way you saw through the cracks in their carefully built world, the way your very presence made them feel something they weren't ready to face. It was too much for them. So they turned on you, mocked you, attacked you, because attacking you was easier than looking in the mirror. You were a walking contradiction to everything they pretended to be. You stood firm when they wavered. You spoke when they stayed silent. You questioned when they blindly accepted. And that was unforgivable in their eyes. Because if you were right, if you were actually seeing something real, that meant their entire existence, their beliefs, their choices, their identity, was built on lies. And that's what they couldn't handle. It was never about proving you wrong. It was never about debating facts. They didn't care about logic, about evidence, about reason. They cared about protecting their illusions, about keeping their fragile reality intact, no matter how much they had to deny, dismiss, or destroy along the way. So when you showed up, unapologetic, unwavering, unwilling to bend, you weren't just a threat. You were an earthquake shaking the very ground they stood on. And instead of stepping back and asking themselves why they felt so threatened by you, they did what weak people always do. They lashed out. They labeled you crazy, difficult, arrogant, dangerous. They tried to discredit you, shame you, silence you. Because if they could reduce you to nothing, then they wouldn't have to confront the real problem, themselves. And maybe for a while, they succeeded. Maybe for a while, you held back, softened your voice, questioned yourself. Maybe their doubt seeped into your mind like a poison, making you wonder, am I the problem? Am I really seeing things that aren't there? But deep down, you always knew the answer. You were never the problem. You were the proof. Proof that their world was too small. Proof that their minds were too closed. Proof that their confidence was built on nothing but denial. And that's why they hated you. Because every time you spoke, moved, existed, you reminded them of everything they had spent their lives avoiding. They fought you because you were the mirror they didn't want to look into. You showed them their own weakness, their own cowardice, their own lack of vision. You showed them what they could have been if they had only been brave enough to face the truth instead of running from it. But here's the thing about truth. It doesn't disappear just because someone refuses to see it. And now they're out of places to hide, because the truth they fought so hard to suppress, it didn't go anywhere. It's still standing, and so are you. But look at them now. Their voices aren't as loud as they used to be. Their laughter is hollow, their words forced. You see it in their eyes, the hesitation, the unease, the creeping doubt that maybe, just maybe, you were right all along. They won't say it. Their pride won't let them. But you don't need their words. Their actions tell you everything. The way they glance at you, the way they avoid direct confrontation, the way their old arrogance has faded into something quieter, something weaker, because deep down they always knew. And now they're starting to realize that the battle was never with you. It was with themselves, and they lost. Number 8. Patience was your strategy, and it's paying off. The fool rushes to be seen. The wise move in silence until the moment speaks for them. They called you slow. They called you hesitant, passive, weak. They mistook your silence for uncertainty, your patience for fear, your refusal to play their game for a lack of ability. They laughed at the way you watched, waited, and calculated, because they only respect noise. They only understand speed, competition, and empty victories. But now they are out of breath. Now they are running in circles. Now they are looking around, confused, wondering why everything they chased has led them nowhere. And you are exactly where you always meant to be. Because this was never about moving first. It was about moving right. It was never about running. It was about understanding the entire board before making a single move. They never saw the pieces shifting in your favor because they were too busy scrambling to prove they were ahead. But they were never ahead. They were moving fast, yes, but in the wrong direction. They were busy, yes, but busy building illusions, burning themselves out for a game that never mattered. They threw themselves into battle without ever questioning the battlefield. And now, they have nothing left. That's the difference between you and them. They chase validation. You chase truth. They seek control. You seek mastery. They react. You observe. They burn bright and fast, only to fade. You burn slow and steady until the fire is unstoppable. History repeats this lesson over and over again, but fools refuse to learn. Napoleon rushed into Russia in winter, believing speed would guarantee victory. His empire crumbled. Companies rushed to release unfinished products, desperate to be first, while those who refine, perfect, and move with patience dominate for decades. People rush into decisions, blinded by their emotions, while those who wait see every possibility before making their move. You understood this before they did. You knew patience wasn't passivity, it was strategy. Because you never needed to prove anything to them. You let them have their quick wins, their hollow moments of superiority, their false sense of dominance. You let them believe they were ahead. And all the while, you stayed quiet, watching, learning, adapting. And now, checkmate. They don't understand how it happened. They don't understand why you suddenly seem untouchable, why you move with a certainty they never saw before. They don't understand why everything they thought they had is now slipping through their fingers. But deep down, they feel it. They feel that the power dynamic has shifted. They feel that their reckless ambition has led them to a dead end, while your patience has placed you in control. They feel that every move they made was pushing them closer to their own downfall. And now, they can't ignore the truth anymore. You didn't rush. You didn't crumble under pressure. You didn't let their pace dictate yours. You moved with intention, and now they are trapped by the very game they thought they were winning. So tell me, who was really ahead all along? The one who rushed, or the one who waited? The one who shouted to be heard, or the one whose silence carried more power than their noise ever could? They can no longer call you slow. They can only wonder how you stayed so far ahead without them ever noticing. They can no longer call you weak. They can only watch as the strategy they mocked is the very thing that secured your victory. Because patience isn't just a virtue, it's a weapon. A weapon only those with true vision know how to wield. And now, you don't need to say a word. They see it, they feel it, and they know. Number 9. Now they watch you in silence, regret in their eyes. Regret is the heaviest chain of all, especially when it comes too late. They don't speak the way they used to. The ones who once mocked you, ridiculed you, dismissed you like an afterthought. Now they sit in silence, watching you, their eyes carrying the weight of everything they swore they'd never feel. Regret. It wasn't supposed to end like this for them. In their minds, you were supposed to break. You were supposed to give up, to shrink, to spend your days proving them right. They thought their laughter, their arrogance, their dismissal of you would be enough to keep you small. But time doesn't bow to their delusions. Reality doesn't care about their opinions. And now, they sit in the wreckage of their own choices, watching the person they once laughed at move forward without them. You see it in their faces, the nervous glances, the forced small talk, the sudden change in energy when you walk into the room. They don't know what to say anymore. They don't know if they should acknowledge what they did or pretend it never happened. Because what do you say to someone you spent years trying to destroy, only to realize you were never strong enough to stop them? You don't need their words. You don't need their apologies, because the truth is already written across their faces, and the silence they sit in now, that silence is the loudest confession they will ever make. For years, they convinced themselves that you were beneath them, that they were ahead, that they were wiser, that you were simply too naive, too lost, too different to ever amount to anything. And now they sit there, watching you become everything they never thought possible. They see it, the strength in your presence, the certainty in your voice, the fact that you never needed them to believe in you in order to rise. And that eats them alive. Because now they can't take back the years they spent underestimating you. They can't rewrite the moments when they chose to laugh instead of listen. They can't undo the times they spoke your name with ridicule, too blind to see that one day they would be watching you from behind. They see it now, and they know. They should have listened. They should have paid attention. They should have seen what was always right in front of them. But instead, they fought against the very thing they should have been learning from. And now, they live with that mistake. Not that they'll ever admit it. Not in words. No, people like them. Their egos won't let them say the things they need to say. They won't tell you how wrong they were. They won't tell you how much time they wasted. But their actions, their sudden hesitation, their quiet, forced smiles, that's all the proof you'll ever need. And the best part, you don't need their validation anymore. You don't need them to say, "You were right." You don't need them to say, "I'm sorry," because you never needed their recognition in the first place. That's what sets you apart from them. They needed to feel superior. You never did. They needed to be right. You just needed to walk in truth. And you did. Even when they mocked you, even when they pushed you aside, even when they did everything in their power to make you doubt yourself. But here's the thing about truth. It doesn't beg. It doesn't rush. It simply waits. And now, as they sit there, struggling to meet your eyes, scrambling for words that will never come, you understand something they never did. You never needed them to believe in you. You just needed time to show them why they should have. Number 10. The power you hold was never theirs to give or take. A lion does not ask permission to roar. Power is not handed out. It is taken by those who were born to wield it. They tried to convince you that your power was something they controlled, that it could be given, taken, measured, or denied, that they held the keys, that they decided who was worthy and who wasn't, that your strength, your knowledge, your very existence was something they had the authority to approve. But let's get one thing straight. Power is never given. It is claimed. And what's yours was never up for debate. They tried to bury you in doubt, to make you believe you were nothing until they acknowledged you, to force you into begging, proving, waiting for some non-existent permission to become what you were already destined to be. But that's the greatest illusion of all, the belief that your power ever belonged to them in the first place. It never did. It never will. Because power doesn't live in their titles, their systems, their fragile little rules. It doesn't come from their acceptance or their validation. It isn't something they can hold in their hands and dangle above your head, deciding whether or not you are worthy to receive it. You were chosen before they even knew your name. Think about that. Before they had the chance to label you, categorize you, dismiss you, you already were. Before they could laugh, reject, or ignore you, your path was already written. Before they had the chance to try and strip you of your power, it was already in your bones, in your mind, in your very existence. And that terrifies them. Because if they can't take it from you, what does that mean for them? If your power isn't something they control, then where does that leave them? If they can't reduce you, suppress you, or define you, then what happens when you fully step into what you are? They know the answer. That's why they fought so hard to break you before you could realize the truth. That's why they tried to convince you that you were small, unimportant, just another lost soul waiting to be given direction. They needed you to believe the lie, because the moment you stopped believing, they lost everything. And now you see it. You don't ask. You know. You don't wait. You move. You don't explain yourself to those who never deserved to understand you. You walk forward, and they either keep up or they get left behind. That's the difference between them and you. They exist in a world where everything has to be handed to them. Permission, acceptance, validation. They rely on systems, on leaders, on false power structures to give them their sense of self-worth. They are nothing without external approval. But you don't need any of it. Because what's in you was never theirs to give or take. They will never admit it. But this is what haunts them. This is what keeps them awake at night, gnawing at their egos, forcing them to come up with new ways to undermine you, to distract you, to make you doubt what you already know. Because if they can't control you, then they have no power at all. And so they try, they mock, they question, they create noise, hoping it will drown out the truth that is growing louder inside you every single day. But it won't work. It never has. Because power is not about being accepted. It's about standing firm even when they refuse to acknowledge you. It's about owning your truth even when they try to rewrite it. It's about knowing without hesitation that what's in you is unshakable, undeniable, unstoppable. So now ask yourself this: what happens next? Do you waste another second explaining yourself to people who will never understand? Do you lower yourself, waiting for them to finally see what has been obvious all along? Do you hesitate, shrink, pretend to be less just to make them comfortable? Or do you step forward, unbothered, unshaken, untouchable, because you were never waiting for them to recognize you in the first place? They spent their time trying to bury you, trying to make you forget, trying to make you question yourself, your vision, your very existence. But they failed, because power is not something that can be stolen. It's not something that can be erased. It's not something that can be transferred from one weak hand to another. Power is something you either have or you don't. And you always had it. They just hoped you'd never figure that out. Number 11. They wanted you. Doubtful, but now you're untouchable. They never had the power to destroy you, so they tried to make you destroy yourself. Doubt. That was their final weapon. When they couldn't control you, when their laughter and ridicule failed, when every lie they built started crumbling under the weight of truth, they resorted to the one thing that could still work against you, your own mind. They planted seeds of hesitation, subtle, calculated, designed to make you question yourself. They wanted you stuck in a loop, thinking, overthinking, pausing, second-guessing. Because if you stopped moving, if you started doubting, they wouldn't have to stop you. You would do it yourself. They whispered it in different ways. Are you sure? Maybe you're just imagining it. What if you're wrong? You always think you know everything. Why do you always have to be different? You felt it, didn't you? That slow, creeping fog of uncertainty. It wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. Doubt doesn't need to shout. It only needs to linger. And for a while you let it. You hesitated. You waited. You looked for signs, for confirmation, for something outside of yourself to tell you that what you knew was real. But that's the trick, isn't it? Truth was never meant to be proven. It was meant to be recognized. And that's why they lost. Because one day you stopped asking. One day you stopped waiting for permission. One day the doubt collapsed under the weight of what was always there, your knowing. Now they have nothing left. You don't explain yourself. You don't hesitate. You don't look for validation. You don't question what is already written into your being. You know. And that is what makes you untouchable. They feel it. They see it. They don't understand it, but they can't deny it. The way you carry yourself, the way your energy has shifted. You move differently now. You aren't reactive. You aren't desperate to be heard, because you know your voice is already an echo of the inevitable. And that scares them more than anything, because their power over you was never real. It was an illusion, a house of cards built on the hope that you would never step into what was already yours. The moment you stopped playing their game, they lost. Now they watch, unsure of what comes next. They have no more weapons, no more tricks, no more ways to pull you back into the maze of doubt. The fear they tried to plant in you, it belongs to them now. Because what happens when you can't be manipulated? What happens when you can't be shaken? What happens when you walk forward, unbothered, untamed, unstoppable? They lose. And you don't just win. You transcend. There's no going back now. No more questioning, no more explaining, no more waiting for them to catch up. That era is over. The one thing they needed to keep you trapped, the one thing they relied on to hold you back, is gone. You don't ask. You don't hesitate. You move. And that's why they can't even look you in the eye anymore. Because you aren't the same. You are untouchable. Number 12. You are the reckoning, and they finally see it. They never had control over you. They only had control over your doubts. and now that's gone. They spent years mocking you, rejecting you, denying you. They dismissed your words, laughed in your face, and turned their backs like your presence meant nothing. They were so sure, so confident, that you would fade into irrelevance, that time would swallow you up and make you just another forgotten voice in the wind. But time didn't erase you. Time revealed you. And now they see it. They feel it in the way the air shifts when you walk into a room. The weight of what they tried to suppress is suffocating them now. They hear it in your voice, steady and unshaken, while theirs stumbles over excuses. They see it in your presence, the kind of presence they never wanted you to own. You were never the joke. They were. Because while they wasted their time trying to bury you, you were becoming something greater than they ever imagined. And now they have to face it. There is no hiding from what's in front of them. No more running, no more laughing, no more pretending. They thought they were untouchable, but truth doesn't play favorites. Reality doesn't care about their denial. And now it stands in front of them, undeniable, unstoppable. And that reality is you. They tried to erase you from the story, but now you're the only part of it that matters. They wanted to cast you as the fool, the outsider, the one who would never rise. But what happens when the one they underestimated becomes the force they can't ignore? This is what they never prepared for. They planned for your failure. They never planned for your comeback. And that's what's happening right now. You are rising, not with their permission, not with their approval, but despite every single thing they did to stop you. And they are watching. They can't look away, because deep down they always knew this moment would come. A part of them always feared it. A part of them always felt the weight of what you carried, but fear made them reject it. They weren't fighting against you. They were fighting against the truth you stood for. But you can only fight reality for so long. Now they are left with nothing but regret. Every laugh, every insult, every dismissal, all of it echoes back at them. Because they weren't just wrong, they were blind. And there is no worse feeling than realizing you mocked the very thing you should have learned from. And you don't even need to say a word. Your presence alone is the lesson. Your success, your clarity, your unshakable confidence, that is what burns them the most. Because now they know what they tried to deny all along. They never had the power. Not over you, not over truth, not over anything. They only had the illusion of power, the ability to make you question yourself. But now that illusion is gone. Now they know. You are the reckoning they never saw coming. And the best part, you don't need revenge. You don't need their validation. They will sit in the ruins of their own arrogance. They will watch as you rise, knowing they were never strong enough to stop what was always destined to be. They tried to control the story, but the ending was never theirs to write.